Hello and welcome back to another video. Welcome back to the YouTube channel, people, and welcome to a bit of a different kind of video. Obviously, we dropped a pep video yesterday, people, but this is just a normal Premier League video talking about and kind of just debating and predicting almost as well which manager is the next to get sacked in the Premier League. Now, before we get into anything, make sure to leave a like on the video and make sure to subscribe if you are new. My social medias are GVR Mikes on all platforms if you want to follow me on there, of course. And yeah, we're trying to still upload every day despite the international break just ending, and we don't have to watch any international football until March. Not that I did anyway. I watched the England Ireland match, but I kind of wish I didn't. Obviously, Premier League football is coming back, and a lot of teams have either fallen below expectation, been on a bad run of form, and or they were just teams that have managers that everyone knew was going to fail anyway. So this one is a bit of a debate. Obviously, this is mainly a West Ham channel. We mainly talk about West Ham on here. So we've talked about Yuda Lopetegui before. Now, he's probably in contention. However, it probably won't be him that's going to be next to get sacked. Should it be him? He should be up there in terms of balancing expectation with how the team is currently doing at this moment in time. That is how we've got to balance it. And that's what I will say. With the table in general, I was just flicking through the table, the Premier League table, and I was thinking, there's only one manager has been sacked. I'm pretty sure that's actually kind of, I guess you could say, refreshing for the first 11 games. I can't remember. I think it was the last time Watford was in the Premier League or something like that. And it's not just because it's Watford, but I'm pretty sure a lot of managers were sacked in the same season. I can't remember if it was the 22-23 season or the 21-22 season, where a lot of managers got sacked that year. Because I'm thinking in the 22-23 season, what Southampton sacked Hassan Hutel and Nathan Jones, Graham Potter got sacked, and Thomas Tuchel got sacked. So Chelsea sacked two managers as well. That was when Ten Hag just started as well. I'm just flicking through my head. Like Scott Parker got sacked as well from Bournemouth. Like so, I guess you could say it's a bit refreshing. Like Scott Parker got sacked quite early. I think he was the first one to get sacked. Tuchel got sacked like 6-7 games in. I think I'm not too sure. Um, with this one, I think the managers in contention, let's just present the table very quickly. Um, and if you are a fan of any of the clubs we're talking about, do educate me in the comments below from your perspective. Now, ignoring the top of the table because we don't really need to look at any of those teams. Um, looking around from pretty much everyone from below, everyone below Manchester United because they just got Amarim. Um, these are kind of the managers that you're kind of looking at thinking that it kind of depends. It kind of depends. So obviously you got us, West Ham United. Lopetegui. It's been said that they like to that the West Ham owners like to honor contracts. If that is actually the case, and they actually feel like you can turn it around, um, then we're in a relegation battle. Now we're in one anyway. If you look at the table, we're 5 points ahead of Crystal Palace. However, it's going to get even steeper and steeper. And the thing is, reports you got to take with a grain of salt anyway, because they say that for now, and then if you lose against Newcastle and Arsenal, it's pressure on you to beat Leicester City. Even if we lost to Newcastle and Arsenal, we're not going to sack Lopetegui. Let's be real. Because we lose to Newcastle and Arsenal on a seasonal basis. With Leicester City, they're looking at like, oh, but that's a game that we could win. Whether we will, I don't know. Because you can get away with facing Leicester at home because you're more likely to win at home against Leicester than away against Leicester. That's kind of what saved Lopetegui with Everton at home, Man United at home, and Ipswich at home, for example. However, if you go Leicester away, even though Leicester haven't been great this season, what does Lopetegui do away from home? He likes to crumble. Even though there was actually a point where we didn't lose an away game until the last international break started against Tottenham, and then we got battered by Tottenham and Nottingham Forest. But that unbeaten away streak meant fuck all because we drew to Fulham and Brentford in that unbeaten away streak. So Leicester City, for example, as we were talking about Leicester City, apparently Leicester interviewed a couple managers. I don't know who. I'm going to assume, I don't know, maybe Potter or Corberan. That's the managers they were linked to in the summer before Cooper took over. Um, and they decided to keep Cooper in a job. Uh, the Leicester case is interesting because their squad's actually not as bad as people make it out to be. Maybe they could have done better in the transfer window. Yes, I know they're suffering with a bit of with FFP issues or PSI issues, whatever it is, and they avoided that points deduction. So that's quite gas for them. However, Steve Cooper was a terrible appointment because I think I even said this when we did the whole Premier League countdown series in the summer that I thought Leicester were doomed from the start. I actually thought they'd be worse off from where they are now. I thought they'd be maybe where Palace are and probably where Southampton are. I actually thought they were at least ready out of the promoted teams, despite the fact that they had a better squad. Boy, was I wrong about Southampton. But I don't know why I was wrong about Southampton. I'll explain later. But with Leicester, they've still got attacking talent. I've actually seen that they've got. Hold on, I can pull up the TikTok. I saw a TikTok about this, about their injuries. They've got quite a bit of an injury crisis coming up. I don't know whether that'll carry on into the West Ham game, but to be honest, that probably doesn't matter when you're facing West Ham United. Just relating it back to the fact that we're facing Leicester in the Amazon Prime fixture. So I think on a Tuesday after we face what's it called? Arsenal. Just looking for it, people. Just looking for it. I don't know whether uh, maybe I didn't save it. Maybe I didn't save it. No? No, I saved it. Hold on. So apparently the Ghana Football Association has just confirmed that Leicester are probably F'd right now. This is from LCFC underscore Zune on Twitter. Vardy, Ayu, Fatawu, Bobby Dickodova Reed, Ricardo Pereira, Patson Daka are all injured, and Buonanotte suspended. That's quite a lot of attackers, quite a lot of people in the same positions. Like that's 4 wingers, 2 strikers as well. So Odson Edward up front, probably be apparently McAteer maybe, Casey McAteer. Knowing Steve Cooper, he'll play a midfielder in the front 3, which is exactly what he was doing at Nottingham Forest. And Buonanotte suspended, he's probably been their brightest spark. And they face Chelsea on the weekend, so you can pretty much write them off unless they. But then again, it's the Premier League, so you never know. But you can pretty much write them off. However, with Leicester, my thing is with them. What my main concern with the whole Steve Cooper appointment, yeah. Let me take you guys through this. When Nottingham Forest got promoted to the Premier League, Steve Cooper was a manager that played football. It's mad to say now, but he actually liked to play football. He actually liked to play on the front foot. However, the guy kind of stopped doing that when they were in the relegation battle with Nottingham Forest. As the first season and the 22-23 season went on, he got more and more defensive, and it ended up, working out for them. Gibbs White on a counter attack mainly. I can't remember who was in that first season for Forest. I think Brennan Johnson, of course, but I forgot who else because Nottingham Forest have bought a lot of players, so I kind of forgotten a little bit. Obviously, Ryan Yates was still there and stuff like that. The players that have been at the club since then, obviously, still there. But they kind of have, like, the difference is with Forest, they knew when to sack Cooper. They knew when to sack Cooper in the next season because even though they bought Elanga and stuff, there was times where even in the early reign of last season and the back end of his reign in the season before, Steve Cooper was playing one attacker, like one actual attacker. Like this guy was playing, and what I mean by that, one of a player that could play in the front 3. I remember seeing a lineup. I think it was Elanga up front, and the only other like proper attacking player was Gibbs White. Everyone else was like either a midfielder or a defender. He wanted to be so defensive after that. He changed everything. This is the problem is when managers go back on what they're about, You can do it when, for example, like you're in a relegation battle, you're in the business end of the season where you just need results. I fully hear that. Go defensive, frustrate teams because the biggest struggle to play against the time where people struggle to play against low blocks the most is in the second half of the season when they need to win games because they start forcing passes, etc. I remember when they survived relegation the first time, Morgan Gibbs White said it's a bit unfair on the manager to criticize him because we're not playing the football that he wants to play. Because Gibbs White knows Steve Cooper from the England youth days, and Steve Cooper never used to play football like that. He didn't even play like that in the Championship. And at Forest, for example. But Forest knew when to sack him because the Forest owners have ambition and they knew that it wasn't going to go anywhere. I can't remember what game where you got sacked. I can't remember what the game was where he ended up getting sacked, but he kind of deserved it in the end. And to be fair, there was a couple of Forest fans even calling it before he got sacked. But relating it back to Leicester, he's carried this on into Leicester City. Like he didn't even start for Tamu. They're like probably one of their better players in the Championship last season. Someone who should probably make the start, should have made the start 11 for Championship Team of the Year. I don't think he did. I think he actually got robbed of it. But the whole reason why Leicester was so good was because Under Maresca, it was wingers getting 1v1 and being dangerous from there. Midfielders making a third man run and building up in that 3-2-5 formation under Maresca, how Maresca kind of does it at Chelsea now. Obviously, Maresca's tweaked it a little bit, but it's the same principles. Now they've got Steve Cooper. The problem is with that is you've got the Steve Cooper of the new, which is the defensive minded, too deep, restricting any sort of attacking threat. And once you actually put the attackers on, you see the benefit of them. That's the problem with these managers that end up being so pragmatic that actually hinders you. But people don't like to see that because they think you're just criticizing pragmatic football in general. No, that's not the case. But that's what's kind of happening with Leicester. That's why they're in the rut that they're in. Moving on to Everton, I think I said Everton would do a little bit better than this, but I also didn't think they'd do like extremely well or anything. I'm going to go back to my Premier League predictions. Let me go back to them because it's on my it's on there. So 14th, I said 14th. So it's kind of a similar position, and I remember making a video of are Everton going under the radar with their transfer business and stuff like that, or are they fucked like everyone thinks they are? And a lot of people predict Everton to finish in a relegation zone every year. Everton always find a way, and they won't get relegated this season either. But again, despite their squad being quite average in general, there's a lot more to get out of it than Sean Dyche is doing. I think a lot of people just think Sean Dyche is some form of relegation battling genius that is gonna, get the teams that he's managing, out of the relegation battle all the time. It kind of went stale at Burnley for a bit, which is why he got sacked. And people were like, "We should have sacked Sean Dyche," including myself. Even I said this, but maybe it was going stale anyway. That's why Burnley got relegated and they needed a change up. But now they've got Scott Parker, so yeah. But with Sean Dyche now, it's kind of like Calvert-Lewin ain't scoring. Like Everton fans want Beto to start. Calvert-Lewin was also looking for a move in the summer. This guy waited until his stock was at an all-time low to try and leave, rather than the season where Ancelotti left. He should have, if he really wanted to push for a move, he should have handed in the transfer request as soon as Ancelotti left. Because Ancelotti made him look better than he actually is. I've always said this guy's kind of overrated. And Beto, he's average, but he came on and made an impact against Fulham and was unlucky against Southampton to not have a goal. I think it was him that was slightly offside in that Southampton VAR goal, but we move. But Everton could get more out of their squad than it actually can. Like, they've got players like Iliman Ndiaye is a decent player. Dwight McNeil's been really average. Tim Burnham, I don't know where he's gone, but he started the season well and kind of faltered from there. Yes, not the greatest off the ball, I must say, for a midfielder. However, if they need some form of ball retention since Anana's left, I don't think Anana's was all that, to be honest. But context, you're at Everton, Branthwaite's only just come back, so their defense is still going to be tight at times. I just think they're going to draw a lot of games. But as the case for whether Steve Cooper or Sean Dyche are going to get sacked anytime soon, I think Steve Cooper is probably the more likely manager to get sacked out of the three. Because Leicester was still weighing up the option of sacking a manager. Everton aren't going to sack Dyche. There's still stuff to do with their owners and whether they're going to confirm their new owners and stuff like that as well. I'm pretty sure there's too much stuff happening behind the scenes for Sean Dyche to get sacked. And and because they probably kind of expected to be here, Sean Dyche isn't falling below the board's expectation as much as the fans are frustrated. I completely understand why the fans are frustrated though. Ipswich Town. I think Ipswich are probably the least likely out of all the teams that we've talked about so far to sack their manager because it's better the man you know rather than the man you don't know when it comes to a promoted team, especially because they know your squad already. Now, what I like about Ipswich compared to what Burnley and Luton were doing last season is that Ipswich have kept the core of their squad from the Championship, but they haven't, just kept the whole squad and just gone on with that to try and compete for, to compete in the relegation battle with just that. They've still refreshed it. Yes, the Hutchinson on permanent deal, he was there last season, but Ogbene, Clark, Schmodix, Delap, who's been great this season, Jacob Greaves, Dara O'Shea, Muric, who is shocking, but it is what it is. Leif Davis signed a new contract as well. listen, forget Ben Johnson and Calvin Phillips, they're bums, but the others are good. Um, and they're still good business, and they've kept the core of their squad. They've got an identity. Like they're kind of naive away from home a little bit, but they also beat Tottenham, got their first win, so they can carry that into the next games. Just use their home ground as a team that where as a thing where they can be really hard to beat. They've got Man United first, so that's going to be interesting to see how they fare up against Ruben Amorim's Manchester United, which we'll preview probably tomorrow um, on Thursday because we're preview all the Premier League games, etc. However, with Ipswich just in general, yeah, as I said, they need to use their home stadium as a place where teams don't want to travel, like every promoted team should be trying to do. I think the difference is with Ipswich, you're more likely to have the crowd on side because of the how long it's been since they've last were in the Premier League. Um, that's the case, really. That's the case. I think they can survive relegation. I think they can. Um, do I think? Do I think they will do as good as I said they would at the start of the season? Probably not. Probably not. Um, but they'll probably be there till the end. If I'm being real, I don't think. I actually think out of all the teams, they probably shouldn't sack their manager as well. As you can see, they've also got 5 draws as well. That is also to a case of the fact that they've been in a lot of the games that they've played, and also they've kind of got unlucky in some of the games they played as well. Now, don't get me wrong, we beat them 4-1. I don't know how, because we're shit, but they were just a bit naive, and I also think Calvin Phillips and Ben Johnson tax. But if they just get their best starting 11 under wraps and just letting them gel and just cut out the errors from the back, they should be fine. They should be fine. This squad can survive relegation. I've seen worse squads survive relegation before. I think they've done good business, and they're also what so smart about the business. Even if they do get relegated, not a lot of the players are going to leave for like a Premier League move, unless it may be another promoted team, and then they'll get money from that anyway. Like a lot of the players they bought are some of the best Championship players from last season, as I mentioned about Clark, Schwadix, etc., and Hutchinson from at Ipswich from last season. So yeah, we're going to see how Ipswich fare out. Crystal Palace. This is a team that I thought were going to finish ninth. I didn't say Europe, but I thought they'd be a lot better than they were. I hyped up their transfer business a lot more than I probably should have. And to be honest with you, that was something I got. That was one of the many things in my predictions that I got completely wrong. But I didn't expect them to finish 18th. Well, not finish 18th, but I didn't expect them to be 18th by now. With Glasner, I don't think he's a bad manager or anything, but you're under pressure for a reason. You're playing players out of position. You're playing Kamada too deep. Kamada's had a terrible start so far. I do believe in obviously giving people the first chance in the Premier League when you start off in a new league, etc. Like give them their first season, but when you're playing this bad, it's kind of hard to defend you. Even I've not really seen a West Ham player start this bad in a new league for time. And people go, Guido Rodriguez, man, this Kamada, especially when he's played deeper, it's just nah. And obviously losing someone like Elise, they maybe replaced him in terms of depth in numbers, but it didn't replace him in terms of quality. We know how special Elise is when fully fit. I do think even with Elise, though, they would still have this problem of being around here because I don't think one man can do it all. I do believe John Felix Mateta's what's it called? Purple Patch was way too overhyped. He's not that good of a striker. The guy was never that good. He's better now under the system. He's got more confidence under his name. But still, come on, purple patches happen for a reason. We see this happen with many players. I don't know why people still fall for it, but people live in a moment when it comes to football in general. And Barry Eze, as much as I rate him, he's someone who hasn't stepped up all season. He had a terrible start against games like Brentford and even against us, nullified quite well. But he hasn't been able to take games by the scruff of the neck. Now that Elise's gone, he hasn't got anyone to really bounce off, pause, when it comes to playing at Crystal Palace. Anyone to combine with, anyone to spray passes with, create for. There's not enough runners in behind. I would say that is a bit one-dimensional. I think with the 3-4-2-1 formation, it can work if you actually have some chemistry down both sides, down the wing-backs, for example. Their squad is better than 18th. Their squad is better than 18th. Do the board needs to be better at Crystal Palace? Yes, but they need to be it kind of all does fall down to the manager in a sense. Because I just think there's more you could get out of this squad, especially with the quality of Glasner himself. I think if there's the most likely managers that are probably going to get sacked is probably the bottom three, and Oliver Glasner will be one of them, unfortunately. As much as I don't like Palace, they've got quite a fun squad. They're also playing like it's the mismanagement of players as well. As I say, playing Commander too deep, Russian players back, playing Adam Water when he needed surgery. There was a report saying he was going to be out for like 6 weeks or whatever it was. Then I saw him playing in the Aston Villa game in the Carabao Cup, and he got injured in that game. They've also got Arsenal in the Carabao Cup as well. Funny enough, I think they'll lose that. But listen, uh, when it comes to Crystal Palace, just in general, cool as a size of a club and where they've faced in the Premier League, and where they've been in the Premier League for the seasons they've been in there, you kind of expect them to finish around these places, not 18th, but like 13th or whatever. But you kind of thought usually when teams finish decent at the end of a season, even if it is a purple patch, even if it is a new manager bounce, they usually carry it on. They usually carry it on into the next season. But Crystal Palace haven't done that at all. So there you go. Wolves with Gary O'Neill. Now, boy, do I have a lot to say. Will I remember everything that I need to say? Probably not. But I have a lot to say about Wolves. Well, about Gary O'Neill specifically. I remember when this guy got sacked by Bournemouth, and a lot of people, including myself, were laughing at Bournemouth. They were like, "How could you sack a man that made you survive relegation?" But when I actually did my research into it and watched a couple of Bournemouth channels, their perspective is, well, they didn't really like the football anyway, which isn't a justifiable reason necessarily to sack a manager if you don't like the football. However, it's more of a case of, was the football working? Probably not. I remember that season when Gary O'Neill took over, especially when he became permanent manager. He didn't win a game for a very, very long time. Very long time. They went patches where they were on a they were on a bounce back and then they would lose the next game. It was very topsy and turvy. And again, their squad was better than how it was played. With that Bournemouth team. But you've seen Bournemouth have hired Andoni Iraola. They upgraded when everyone laughed at them. This is what happens when you get a coach that can actually coach, a proper coach. And there you go. They were like, we've seen an opportunity. Iraola's out of work. I think he was just running out of contract at Vallecano, I think it was. With Gary O'Neill, they were like, okay, we'll take the bullet. We'll bite the bullet. And funny enough, Wolves started last season by beating Bournemouth under the many games that Iraola lost. But Bournemouth was still stuck with Iraola, but Iraola lost a lot of games, and one of them was to Gary O'Neill at Wolves. Even though Gary O'Neill kind of played it down, I'm sure he was slightly happy about being at his former club. With them in general, you kind of look at it and think, okay, Wolves are onto something. Their board don't really invest. They've kind of been upset with their board for quite a while due to the lack of investment. They buy some players, but they don't buy it in all the positions that they need, and they never really address everything that they need in any window that they go into. And you can kind of take their dip with a bit of context into pretty much saying that, especially from January onwards, pretty much their whole front three was injured. They didn't really have their front three, like the front three of Cunha, Hwang, and Neto. That was the front three that was cooking in that 3-4-3 system. Eight Nori at wing back, etc. And their back three that always seems to do well at Wolves. That was doing really well when they had their front three intact, especially in the first half of the season when they all got injured. There you go. It's quite easy as well to play against the Gary O'Neill team anyway, even when a Gary O'Neill team is good, because Gary O'Neill he is proudly pragmatic. He bases his setup on whoever the opponent is. That he's even said that on the Monday Night Football he was on. I do think his ideas are actually good. I just don't think he's actually the right man to give you those ideas. I think he should be a coach in a backroom staff rather than, the front man of the whole managerial play. So that's just my opinion. And going into this season, he changed the whole system for whatever. If you're a Wolves fan watching this, please tell me why Gary O'Neill wanted to change the system. I've said this millions of times when talking on various Premier League shows. They went from a three at the back, a 3-4-3, to change to a 4-2-3-1, which is pretty much a formation that Gary O'Neill was familiar with at Bournemouth anyway. But he did a variation of a 4-2-3-1 with a 3-4-3, kind of switched it about in possession and out of possession as well. Using Tavernier and Dango Uwatara as wing backs with Adam Smith or Lloyd Kelly either side tucking in. as a centre back um, at one point, and he kind of did that with last season with Totti, sometimes being a left back, sometimes tucking in as a centre back with Ait Nori getting further forward as a winger, sometimes a wing back as well. You get the gist, but he's gone straight to a 4-2-3-1 and tried to go more attacking. Um, and we've seen that's not what Gary Neal was all about. And that's kind of why they're there in the first place. The only game they've actually won is against a Southampton side who are the only team below them. Wolves have been 20th for quite a bit. Like, it's only until like the last international break where everyone started to win. Like Ipswich, Crystal Palace, Wolves, and Southampton only picked up their last win like a couple games ago. Like mainly Ipswich and Palace both beat Tottenham, Wolves beat Southampton, and Southampton beat Everton. So that kind of tells you all you need to know, really. Um, and I think Gary O'Neill should be sacked. I think even with Wolves' squad being under like I don't know what the word is, but like not bought properly. Like they've underused the transfer market. Even though they've underused the transfer market, it needs to be better coached. It's still a squad that shouldn't even really be in a relegation battle. It should be it shouldn't be in the bottom three. Maybe a relegation battle, but minimum 15th. Minimum 15th. I don't think it should be in the bottom three if we're basing it on squads. Because you got to look at it. Marco Silva's getting more out of his players at Fulham. Nuno's getting more of his players at Nottingham Forest. Like it's about over exceeding with your squad. Every good coach will over exceed. Brentford don't buy that much, but Thomas Frank always finds a way. Wolves got to find that same guy that is going to represent the club well and just is a decent coach that can get the best out of the players that he has at the time because their board ain't changing anytime soon, which is what they had with Nuno and what Brentford have with Thomas Frank. So even if you don't really invest and you've underinvested, that was the word I was looking for, in the transfer market, you need that coach that is going to get the best out of what he has no matter what and doesn't need money. Because there are coaches out there probably. He just needs to actually use the market. But I have a feeling that if Gary O'Neill was going to be sacked, he would have been sacked now. Then again, it's probably Steve Cooper and the bottom three managers that are most likely to be sacked. Now let's get on to the last team, Southampton. Thing is with Southampton, let me explain why I tried to think that they were going to survive. I didn't want to do the lazy thing in the predictions to just put all the promoted teams in the bottom three. I didn't want to do that because I thought Leicester were going to get relegated when they hired Steve Cooper. I was already set on that. I said the 20th for Leicester. By the way, I never get my predictions right. So if you watch a predictions video from me, just clown me in the comments. Like, I don't get any of these right ever. Even though I know a lot about football, I'm terrible with predictions because you can't predict these leagues. I even did a championship predictions league. Like, that's even worse. I didn't want to put Southampton and Ipswich there just for the sake of it because I knew a lot of people were going to do that, and I'm not someone that goes against the grain for the sake of it. But I wanted to do it. I wanted to think that they were going to carry on their football and just tweak it a little bit. I thought Russell Martin going to the five at the back would tweak their football a little bit by still keeping his principles. He'll still keep the 3-5 at the back, whatever, and he will surprise teams. I've watched Southampton like a few times this season, not many. But they dominated it, like the 20 minutes against Man United where they played well kind of sums them up. Dominate on the ball, decent in midfield under Ugochukwu and Flynn Downs. I know they don't really like Ugochukwu anymore, but from what I've seen on Twitter anyway, there's Twitter, so take him with a grain of salt. Dominate the ball, use talent dribbling, attack well, create chances, don't finish them. Don't really get the final piece. When they get a penalty, Cameron Archer missed it. And then when it turns over, the goals they conceded against Man United were terrible. They were terrible. They were just mistakes. That's what Southampton did. The goals they conceded were just flimsy. But that's kind of what you expect when you go into a Premier League season with the same centre-backs that you got relegated with, Jack Stevens and Jan Bednarek. Well, to be fair, Jack Stevens wasn't there. He was on loan at Bournemouth, I'm pretty sure, in that season. But you get what I mean. He was still in a relegation battle with Bournemouth, you know? Jan Bednarek. I'm pretty sure he's injured right now. I think he got injured on international break, so they kind of fucked anyway. So They bought Nathan Wood and Ronnie Edwards, two young players that might not be ready for the Premier League yet. Or they'll just play a back four of Kyle Walker-Peters, Sugawara on the other side, and Ryan Manning on the wing, and just tuck one of them into another centre back. Because that's what Russell Martin seems to be doing. Going on to Russell Martin in general, he's not ready for the Premier League. I was completely wrong. I didn't know whether he was ready for the Premier League. I kind of just wanted to predict Southampton and Ipswich not in a relegation zone to not be lazy, but cool. With Russell Martin in general, his football's is even more naive than Company at Burnley. Do I think the business that Southampton did was terrible? It was kind of just average. I think Ben Burton Diaz is a decent signing, but hasn't necessarily hit the ground running necessarily. Cameron Archer is a good striker, but probably not good enough to be a main striker in the Premier League. Tyler Dibling's a good young player coming through. Bit of very raw though, and can't really rely on a 17, 18-year-old. I think Flynn Downs is a great signing. Of course, everyone knows how much I like Flynn Downs. I think he was mistreated at West Ham. One of the many players mistreated at West Ham. Taylor Harwood-Bellis on the permanent. Great signing. Great signing, in my opinion. I think he's going to be the one that rises. And he scored his first goal for England against Ireland. And I didn't know he was going to be the son-in-law of Roy Keane, which is hilarious in itself. So, fair play. Aaron Ramsdale is a very good signing for a team that wants to battle relegation. I didn't expect Ramsdale to take that step down so low, but I guess he just wanted to play football and probably wasn't many teams that probably needed a goalkeeper. If he was at Arsenal for another season, I would have seen the West Ham links beaming up. I'm pretty sure we'll go after Kelleher now. I know Ramsdale was linked with Chelsea randomly, but that wasn't anything concrete. Also, I don't think that would have been a good signing for Chelsea, but I think Ramsdale's a good signing for a team that wants to survive relegation. You just need to buy players that, like, I don't even know how they got Sugawara in, but it's those kind of players that you need that are willing to take the step down and willing to fight. They need to buy in January. But if there's anyone that needs to be sacked, it's him, because you never know. Usually teams at this part of the season that are in the bottom three that are 20th are probably going to get relegated, and Southampton are probably going to finish 20th. However, you can salvage the season by just getting another manager. Well, I know they won against Everton, yeah, but they just lost against Wolves, yeah. They're like, you can't keep making mistakes from the back like this. You can still play it from the back. You can play football in a relegation battle. That's not the point. You just can't be one-dimensional with whatever football you're trying to do. Which is why teams falter in general, no matter what the style of play is. If you're one-dimensional, you don't get anywhere in football. But that's also if your system is just not good enough in general, whatever system you're actually trying to stick to. So if we look at it overall, we'll look at the teams that we talked about from 14th to 20th. The most likely managers that are probably going to get sacked: either Russell Martin, Gary O'Neill, Oliver Glasner, and Steve Cooper. Who do I think is next? To come to the conclusion, I think it'll be Glasner. The reason why I think it'll be Glasner, I think we've seen actual history with Crystal Palace actually sacking the managers. However, with Leicester, they took too long to sack Brendan Rodgers. They got Dean Smith when it was too late, basically. With Ipswich, it just ain't going to happen with Kieran McKenna. He has the fans, and he's probably going to get a big move when he wants to. Also, Russell Martin, I don't know if I feel like Southampton will just stick with him just because they got promoted with him. He has the credit in the bank for winning the playoff final. And Wolves, if they would have sacked Gary O'Neill by now, then yeah. So Glasner will probably be the next one if it carries on like this. If not, then Steve Cooper. I think Wolves and Southampton aren't going to move as efficient as they should. But then again, I just said that about Leicester's board as well. So that's why I think Glasner is, mainly because we've seen a history of them sacking managers before. Yes, Bruno Lage got sacked for Wolves, but that was a long time ago. Lopetegui left on his own accord as well. Bruno Lage left in 2022. So it's been 2 years since a manager's actually been properly sacked at Wolves. Make sure to leave a like on the video. Make sure to subscribe if you are new. Let me know your thoughts in the comments as well. Make sure to follow all the social medias at GVO Mikes on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. We are on the road to 1K subscribers. I'll see you guys tomorrow.